Welcome to episode 2 of my podcast. Still doesn't have a name. Today we have my uncle Ken, who is a super awesome guy. He can be very passionate. One of the things that he is super passionate about is being healthy, exercising. He's like the only person I've ever met that's rode 100 miles on a bike up a hill to the tallest point in the area. He's got pictures. The fog was so thick you couldn't see him very well, but he's got pictures of it. He's a avid bike rider, avid health nut. He's a fan of, well-rounded portion control meals. Eats a lot of chicken, lots of vegetables. Very rarely gets any sort of ordered food or whatnot. And that shows a little bit in this podcast because um, I failed him by trying to explain how I wanted my podcast to be as, whatever, we'll just talk and that'll be that. Is there anything he wants to talk about? He said diabetes and sugar consumption and whatnot. And because of my lack of explanation that I wanted it to be more of a discussion, he kind of prepared it more like a TED talk. But neither of us are quite in the league for a TED Talk, so it's uh it's not gonna be the most entertaining podcast, but it'll have some information on it. I do try to get a little bit of conversation going, but mostly it's mostly Uncle Ken just reading some of the stuff that he got off of the internet when it comes to diabetes and sugar and stuff like that because he he wants to see people get healthier. And if anyone has looked into sugar and health on that nature, there's a lot of documentaries and stuff that'll open your eyes to how bad sugar is for you. Just doing a very, very minuscule amount of actual research, and by that I mean I read one website and watched one and a half documentaries, and I've decided I'm gonna try to go sugar free, um, just because the numbers don't lie. So I'm already down some weight, and I've only been at it for a week. I'm not upset with that. I'm actually cooking some mushrooms, chicken, cheese because I love cheese, even though lactose is technically a sugar. I didn't know that until I watch this stuff. And peppers and potatoes, I think. Yeah, that's what I'm cooking in a Dutch oven as I'm recording this actual intro. So, um, without further ado, welcome to my podcast with my Uncle Ken. Again, it's n- gonna be it's gonna be a little bit. Well, anyways, you guys will find out. And then of course I'll try to put an outro that might add some entertainment to it. So, uh, here he is.
Well, thanks for having me, Kyle.
So you wanted to talk about some stuff?
Yeah, I like to talk about something that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's your health. And I want to talk about sugar. It's not politics. It's not sports. Sports, politics. You're not going to learn much things from that. But hopefully today, when I talk about sugar and diabetes, which has affected a lot of Americans in today's world. Now, first, I want to talk about a little bit about history of sugar. Sugar was first produced from sugarcane plants in northern India sometime after the first century. The word sugar is thought to be from Sanskrit, meaning ground or candied sugar, originally grit gravel. Sanskrit literature from ancient India, written between 1500 and 500 BC, provides the first documentation of the cultivation of sugar cane and of the manufacture of sugar in the Bengal region of the Indian subcontinent. The Sanskrit name for a crudely made sugar substance was Gouda, meaning to make into a ball. The history of sugar has five main phases. The extraction of sugarcane juice from the sugarcane plant and the domestication of the plant in tropical Southeast Asia sometime around 4000 BC. Number 2 was the invention of manufacture of cane sugar granules from sugarcane juice in India a little over 2,000 years ago, followed by improvements in refining the crystal granules in India in early centuries AD. The number 3 was the spread of cultivation and manufacture of cane sugar to the medieval Islamic world together with some improvements of production methods. Number 4 was the spread of cultivation and manufacture of cane sugar to the West Indies and tropical parts of the Americas beginning in the 16th century, followed by more intensive improvements in production in the 17th through 19th centuries in that part of the world. And the 5th was development of beet sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and other sweeteners in the 19th and 20th centuries. Known worldwide by the end of the medieval period, sugar was very expensive and was considered a fine spice. But from about the year 1500, technological improvements and the New World sources began turning it into a much cheaper bulk commodity. India, where the process of refining cane juice into granulated crystals was developed, was often visited by imperial convoys such as those from China to learn about cultivation and sugar refining. By the 6th century AD, sugar cultivation and processing had reached Persia, and from there that the knowledge was brought into the Mediterranean by the Arab expansion. Wherever they went, the Arabs brought with them sugar, the product and the technology of its production. Sugarcane originated in tropical Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. Different species likely originated in different locations, originating in India and coming from New Guinea. Originally, people chewed sugarcane raw to extract its sweetness. Indians discovered how to crystallize sugar during the Gupta dynasty, around 350 AD. Indian sailors consumed of clarified butter and sugar carried sugar by various trade routes. Traveling Buddhist monks brought sugar crystallization methods to China during the reign of Harsha, 606 to 647. In North India, Indian envoys. That's it. You're gonna have to cut that out.
Well, okay. There's no editing, so keep that in mind. We just go flow.
Oh, during the reign of Indian envoys, I can't find out. I think that's about it on that history. And that's for the history of sugar. Okay, for the second subject, I'd like to talk about. Oh, this was all taken from Wikipedia.
Okay.
Okay, the source of all that sugarcane history was taken from Wikipedia.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Did you know that molasses is actually the byproduct of extracting sugarcane?
Wow, cool.
Like the crystallized sugar. I didn't know that. I never worked with molasses until I made baked beans a couple weeks ago, and it was like, what exactly? Like I'm using this, but I've never really looked into it. It's actually when they extract the crystals of the sugar, the remainder is the molasses, which I guess used to be called like the poor man's sweetener. Used to sell by the barrel, but
that's
you know,
cool.
before they figured out how to mass produce regular sugar, I guess. But it says that it goes back to like you said the 200 or so BC.
Yeah, 200 BC.
I was watching one of the two movies I tried to watch on it. One of them was saying that I was reading about diabetes, and it was talking about how that had been discovered like 5000 BC because ants were attracted to urine, and it's like I've never looked at my urine that much. Like, are ants I hope ants aren't attracted to my urine, but I've never really looked into it. It's like, you know, people ask questions like, who would have thought of that? It's like, well, yeah, who would have thought of that? Good thing somebody did think of that, but Anyways, you wanted to move on to
Yeah, now I want to talk about, sugar's been around for a long time and it's very tasty and very sweet and people
and
like it. And
80%
it,
of products in grocery stores.
and it's enhanced with, it is an enhancement. And, but the only problem, it does have some strong side effects. And we all have to be aware of that, especially as you get older. Even young people get diabetes.
Yeah. One of them was one of the two documentaries I watched was based, I believe, out of England, and they were, talking about how in the children's hospital they pull out like 3-year-olds' teeth because it's rotting from the sugar. And being an American, I'm like, maybe a toothbrush will help, but that's also stereotypical. But at the same point, it's like, hold on, I've never heard of a 3-year-old's teeth being rotting. You know what I mean? And it's fascinating that they're consuming so much sugar that they're 3 years old and their teeth are already failing.
Yeah,
And it's like
it's a shame
it's
because it's definitely, for personal, the children, that's not very attractive, and it give them some, complex or, low self-esteem if, don't keep their teeth up. Not only that, it can be painful, so sugar, definitely bad for your teeth. Now, reading from the CDC, and it was printed just in October, it's reported that more than 100 million U.S. adults are now living with diabetes or pre-diabetes. The report finds that as of 2015, 30.3 million Americans, 9.4% of the U.S. population have diabetes, and another 84.1 million have pre-diabetes, a condition that, if not treated, often leads to type 2 diabetes within 5 years. Now, that report was in 2015. I just assume it's probably even a little higher now. So, the report confirms that the rate of new diabetes diagnosis remains steady. However, the disease continues to represent a growing health problem. Diabetes was the 7th leading cause of death in the U.S. in 2015. The report also includes country-level data for the first time and shows that some areas of the country bear a heavier diabetes burden than others. And especially like down south, they have a higher incidence of diabetes. In inner cities, they have a higher incidence of diabetes. In poorer sections, they have a higher incidence of diabetes.
I could understand why places that have a harder time affording fresh food would lead to more diabetes, but does it say anything about why the South versus the North?
It's just that the low income, not being able to afford the food, adequate health care, and just the way things are more spread out down there and stuff like that. In 2015, estimated 1.5 million new cases of diabetes were diagnosed among people ages 18 and older. And you know what? A lot of people don't know that they have it. It's just that 7.2 million Americans didn't know that they had the condition. Only 11.6% of adults with pre-diabetes knew they had it. So we definitely need more testing out there. We gotta get people to the doctors and start testing them.
Yeah, I wish it was easier to get blood work done. Like
Yeah.
if you could go to any doctor and just be like, here's $25, test my blood. I would do that like quarterly, just because it's interesting. Like, we were talking earlier. I don't know if we were recording yet, but with the whole like the way that I do, I'm just gonna do this month, and then I switch. It'd be awesome if I could like one month. You remember I did that carnivore diet where I was eating only eggs, bacon, milk, cheese, and steak for 30 days straight, and then I got my blood work done, and then I switched to a vegetarian diet. Keep in mind that was only to like throw a curveball at my parents. So the legit vegetarian diet involved things like pizza, because it's technically vegetarian, although not healthy. And it would have been nice if I could have gotten my blood work done after that. Also, to be like, wow, it changed horribly. I was watching the guy who made Super Size Me. You ever see that?
Yeah.
He also made one about sugar. I'm going to be honest, I fell asleep halfway through it. But he was doing that, where he decided that he was going to do, I think, 60 days of an average diet, which involves 40 teaspoons of sugar a day, which is a lot. I guess the CDC, I believe, recommends 4 a day,
Wow.
if I remember right. But I didn't get to watch the end of it because I
Well, I
fell
was
asleep.
thinking maybe you know how you walk through the mall and they have these blood pressure machines situated every once in a while. Too bad they couldn't have a machine that could test your sugar. You know.
Yeah,
And
well, that pulls into the whole thing of you have to put your blood in it. So
well,
how
hey,
do you do that without?
easy. Just stick your finger in there and somehow I
Yeah, and
don't
then
know.
it pokes you, and then it pokes me, and then I get whatever you
Well, I'm
have.
sure they can come out with a gadget and you
Yeah,
can
maybe.
replace the you know whatever it is. You know, I mean, you can catch the flu using the blood pressure machine, right? I mean,
Yeah, but that's transdermally.
I'm sure they can come up with something. The point is, we got to get people
Yeah,
more available to be checked. You know
yeah,
what I mean? If all these people are out there and they don't know they have it, we either got to educate them, the people on symptoms, or get them tested more. Maybe both. Okay, rates of diabetes were higher among American Indians and Alaska Natives and non-Hispanic blacks and Hispanics compared to Asians and non-Hispanic whites. So why that is education, and also diabetes prevalence varies significantly by education. Adults with less than a high school education are more likely to get diabetes than those with a high school education, and those even with a college education even has less. So whether it has to do with education or college educated, they got more money, they got better insurance, you know, whatever the reason. And the southern and Appalachian areas of the United States have the highest rates of diagnosed diabetes and new diabetes cases. I don't, and you know, diabetes can also be a contributing factor to other serious health conditions, uh, heart disease, stroke, nerve and kidney disease, and even vision loss.
yeah. I was reading about a 4-year-old who. No, wait, no, that was the flu. Never mind. Brain fart. The flu left her blind, not diabetes.
To raise awareness and help people with pre-diabetes know where they stand and how to prevent type 2 diabetes, the CDC and the American Diabetes Association and the American Medical Association partner with the Ad Council to launch the first national public service advertising campaign about pre-diabetes. So as I was talking before, you know, if you can't get them to test, at least you can maybe educate them and make them more aware. And it's both in English and Spanish. It encourages people to take a short online test to see what their risk is. Now, I also want to talk about pre-diabetes. What's the difference between pre-diabetes and diabetes? Having pre-diabetes means your blood glucose sugar levels are higher than normal, but not high enough to be diagnosed as diabetes. Pre-diabetes can lead to heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes, the most common form of diabetes. Pre-diabetes can often be reversed. With type 2 diabetes, your body cannot properly use insulin, or hormone that helps glucose get into cells of the body. You can get type 2 diabetes at any age, but you are at higher risk if you are older, overweight, have a family history of diabetes, or are not physically active, or are a woman who had gestational diabetes. With type 1 diabetes, your body cannot make insulin, so you need to take insulin every day. Type 1 diabetes is less common than type 2 diabetes. About 5% of the people who have diabetes have type 1. Currently, no one knows how to prevent type 1 diabetes. If you want to learn more about the basics of diabetes and pre-diabetes, you can visit the CDC's diabetes website. Who is at risk for pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes? If you are overweight, you are 45 years of age or older, your parent or sibling has type 2 diabetes, You are physically active fewer than 3 times a week. You ever give birth to a baby that weighed more than 9 pounds? Well, we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I got snipped.
You ever had diabetes while pregnant? Following are the percentage of people in the United States with diagnosed diabetes from 2010 to 2012 among people aged 20 or older by race and ethnicity. American Indian Alaska Natives, 15.9%. Non-Hispanic blacks, 13.2%. Hispanics, 12.8%. Asian Americans, 9%. Non-Hispanic whites, 7.6%. If you are at risk, talk to a healthcare professional about getting the blood sugar test. Additional 84.1 million adults have 1 in 3 have prediabetes, which means the blood sugar is higher than normal, but not high enough to be considered type 2 diabetes. Without intervention, many people with prediabetes could develop type 2 diabetes within 5 years, which put them at risk of serious health problems, including heart attack, stroke, blindness, kidney failure, and loss of toes, feet, or legs. And I'm sure, we all have relatives or we know somebody that, was under that situation,
Did the Uncle Frank there that was missing legs? I think he was your
Yeah,
uncle.
Sue's
Was
mom.
that what caused diabetes?
Yeah, and you had Sue's mother's brother had diabetes. Yeah, so it was
It's
your
unfortunate
uncle.
that I don't really remember.
Yeah, he lost some toes and stuff like that. Type 2 diabetes affects everybody. It affects millions of individuals and their families, workplaces, and the U.S. healthcare system. In 2017, the total cost of care for people with diagnosed diabetes was $327 billion, up 33% over a 5-year period. About 1 in 4 healthcare dollars is spent on people with diagnosed diabetes. The majority of expenses are related to hospitalizations and medications used to treat complications of diabetes. People diagnosed with diabetes incur an average of $16,750 annually in medical expenses. That's about 2.3 times the medical expenses of a person without diabetes. The need to prevent type 2 diabetes has never been greater.
If I remember right from one of those 2 shows I tried to watch, it's like $100,000 a day or something like that for blood, the kidney failure machine, dialysis.
Really? Wow.
And it's like, how are you gonna ever afford that? Like, obviously, the people who don't have that through insurance are paying for it, but that's not cheap.
Now, one thing about pre-diabetes is that you can still eat normally. You just have to eat smaller portions, and you have to be careful on what you eat. You got to have a healthful, balanced diet. Can manage their condition and reduce the risk of health-related complications. Having diabetes does not mean a person has to stop eating, but they need to eat some of them in smaller portions. Carbohydrates are an important source of energy, but a person with diabetes should be careful when choosing which carbs to eat and how to spread them evenly throughout the day. There are 3 main types of carbohydrates in food. Do you know them, Kyle?
I can look at your list here.
Starch,
but I would
sugar.
not have guessed starch. I would have said sugar and then
Fiber is a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And sugar and starch.
I don't think I would have used the word fiber.
I didn't even know fiber was a sugar.
Yeah, I would have said sugar and then the natural stuff. Vegetables. Vegetables are sugars, right?
Now, everybody should eat a certain amount of sugar, fiber, and starch every day. Now, it's recommended you should eat between 22.4 and 33.6 grams of fiber every day, depending on the person's age and sex. Carbs should make up 45 to 65%.
Now, just real quick, when you say age and sex, do you mean how they identify, or never mind? Move on.
This was all article. Carbs should make up 45 to 65% of an adult's daily calories, while added sugars should constitute less than 10% of their calorie intake. I wonder how many people really keep track of what they eat every day. The grams of fibers, the grams of everything. I know I try to track my fiber, but the other, like carbohydrates, I mean, that's kind of hard to track. You know what I mean?
Well, they've got apps like MyFitnessPal does that for you. If you plug in what you eat, it'll add up and keep track of not only your macros, which is your carbs, your fats, and your proteins, but also your micronutrients like your vitamins and minerals and stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a good app.
It just takes effort. You gotta be willing to do the work.
Yeah, you have
and
to.
a lot of people aren't.
That's why we have to get more people to be willing to get to do the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in the long run, it's going to help them and their family and everybody else. You know, it's a win-win. I don't see it. You know, a win-win for everybody. At one time, there was a special recommendations about how many carbohydrates people with diabetes should eat, but I guess they say there's no set guidelines now. It says a person can speak to a doctor or dietitian about their individual dietary needs, including how many carbohydrates to eat and when. Factors affecting these individual needs include height, weight, activity level, and medications. Which activity is very important, you know, because
Yeah, I wonder if they've switched to that simply because they've learned that they were wrong in the past. Did you know that when was it Hoover who had a heart attack? When he had a heart attack, a bunch of people, were like, "Why did this happen?" And some scientists were like, "It's because of fat," and some scientists were because it's sugar. And the scientists who were saying it's fat's fault were the ones who ended up winning that political battle, which then put a war on fat. And do you know what food without fat is? Bland.
I know everybody needs fat.
So then they added sugar to make it taste good.
But like you said, that's why we research and we learn things every day and try to get better and find out things that were wrong in the past, but we change them and
isn't it
good
funny
in the
how
past.
It worked out? Like, fat is bad. Remove the fat, add sugar, and now everybody's fat.
Well, the point is, all of the chemicals, elements important. You just have to moderate, and then you don't have to worry about giving one up and doing more on the other one. Moderation is the best thing when it comes to your diet.
Yeah. Would you support a sugar tax?
Well, I don't think that would really do anything because people like sugar and they're addicted to it. Now we'll get to that later on. How sugar plays games on your brain, how it's almost addictive like heroin, and regardless of putting the money on a sugar tax, it's not going to work because people like their soda.
Well, isn't that what happened with cigarettes though? Like, nicotine use has declined, right? And they've been raising taxes on that regularly to try to convince people that it's not worth the money to partake in that vice.
Well, you get taxed everything forever, every item, every bad thing, but you don't have to do that. You could just educate people, save everybody a lot more money, just educate them. I mean, it's a lot easier just taxing everything that's bad for you, but that's not really teaching anybody to be better. I mean, just, why can't you just convince someone that something's not good for you without having to tax the heck out of it,
So you would support a campaign of commercials?
Yeah, I would like
this is your lungs. This is your lungs on nicotine, except for do it with maybe your gut.
Because what I think if you put a tax on sugar on soda, they'll go to some other sugar item and they'll invent some other sugar item. There's so much different sugar items in the store. How many different sugar drinks? When you put a tax on soda, does that mean all the power drinks are going to be taxed? All the other coffee drinks are going to be taxed? I mean, what's going to? I mean, there's more in them coolers than just soda, right?
Yeah.
And
but if you taxed sugar as an ingredient, though, it would not only tax sodas, but it would also tax
juices.
Anything with added sugar. So
why don't they stop making stuff without sugar?
Well, because people are willing to buy it.
Because they're addicted to sugar.
Did you know it's cheaper to buy soda than water?
Well, that's because because it costs more to produce water than it does produce soda.
It's cheaper to buy gas than water.
Doesn't make it good because it's cheaper. or
Right.
make it
Well, that's what I'm
healthful.
saying is
Yeah.
like if they taxed sugar, it would at least make water comparable at the least theoretically, which would then maybe lead more people to decide to purchase
Well,
water
in
instead.
Massachusetts, they don't even tax food, so why would you want them to tax sugar?
Well, you don't need sugar. You do need food, right?
But 90% of all foods has got sugar in
Well, 80% was the number
80.
that was in that
it.
documentary.
80%.
But yeah, but that like when it comes to added sugar, it's if you were to tax just added sugar, that means things like Kool-Aid and soda and things like maybe pasta sauce might go up. Yeah, but that means that it may be cheaper to buy tomatoes and make your own pasta sauce.
I'm just not a
Right?
big fan of raising taxes to get the people to
Oh, don't get me wrong.
they get things wrong because poor people might not be able to. They might want to still have a soda, you know what I mean, and now they won't be able to have one because, I mean, rich people are still going to afford the soda. So all you're really doing is make it hard for poor people to buy it. The rich people, you tax it, they're still going to buy it. So taxing something is not going to really help everybody because a lot of people can afford it and it won't really bother them that much. Soda's not like a pack of cigarettes where it costs $10.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it could be. And if soda was $10 for a 2 liter, how many poor people would decide to drink water
Then
instead?
you got that rolling thing where first it's soda, then it's juice, and then it's milk, and then it's everything that
Oh,
that
God,
got
please
sugar
don't
in it.
tax milk. I love
Sugar's
milk.
got milk in it, right?
Well,
Milk's
lactose
got
is a form of
sugar.
sugar. Lactose is a form. I learned that in that documentary. I didn't know that.
Okay, now getting back to carbs. There's foods that consist of processed carbs and those that contain added sugars also provide energy, but they contain few nutrients. People should avoid these as far as possible. Examples that have processed carbs are baked goods made with highly processed white flour, sweets, candies, and any foods with added sugar, white breads, and cereals. Well, you're going to go to the supermarket, what are you going to buy? You're going to buy anything there. It's almost everything.
Most supermarkets have a small fresh food section.
I know, you walk up and down the aisle and it's like all boxed food, boxed
26
food,
aisles
boxed
of,
food,
of
boxed food.
preservatives and
boxed food,
2
boxed
aisles
food.
of fresh.
I know, they say the best way to go shopping in a supermarket, just stay on the outside. That's where all the good stuff is.
That's a good point. I mean, except for Stop and Shop ice cream is on the outside. Does that count?
Okay, and then there's the healthy carbs, and the body does not break fiber down in the same way as other carbs, so it does not raise blood sugar levels as quickly. Fruits, vegetables, and whole grains provide healthful carbs. They provide energy, fiber, and nutrients such as vitamins and minerals. People with diabetes should limit their intake of grains. They should limit their grains. All grains contain starch, but whole grains can also contain essential vitamins, minerals, and fiber. People with diabetes should limit or avoid white bread, bagels, tortillas, cakes, muffins, and other baked goods containing white flour, white rice, white pasta, cereals, crackers, and pretzels that contain added sugar and no whole grains. Well, that pretty much takes care of a lot of snacks. Another study found that eating 2 extra servings a day of whole grains reduced women's chances of developing type 2 diabetes by 21%. Healthful grains to eat include brown or wild rice, barley, oatmeal, millet, high fiber cereals that contain at least 5 grams of fiber per serving, whole grain sprouted bread that contains at least 3 grams of fiber per serving.
Quinoa?
Quinoa.
Quinoa? I don't know. Amaranth.
Amaranth.
That's
What's that?
When you're driving down and you see a field full of those bushels of yellow flowers, I believe that's what those are.
Oh, wow, cool. The body does not absorb all of the carbs from whole grains, and those that it does not absorb will enter the bloodstream more slowly than processed carbs. For this reason, they are less likely to cause a blood sugar spike. and the person will feel full for longer. Fiber is a healthful carb that people should eat every day. People with diabetes should limit the amount of sugar that they consume and pay careful attention to their intake of starch. Another important element, chemical, is protein. Protein helps build the body, maintain and replace tissue. The body's organs, muscles, and immune system consists of protein. Eating red meats such as beef, pork, and lamb may increase the risk of diabetes, even at low levels of consumption. A smaller serving of processed red meats, such as bacon, increase the risk by 51%. Protein foods that also are high in fat are not helpful for many people with diabetes, as they can lead to a weight gain and high levels of cholesterol and triglycerides. Proteins to avoid or limit include red meat, such as beef, pork, and lamb, breaded, fried, and high sodium meats, processed meats such as bacon, hot dogs, and deli meats, ribs and other fatty cuts of meat, poultry with the skin on, and deep fried fish. Proteins to eat include
they want you to eat chicken,
deep fried beans, lentils, nuts, soy products, tofu, fish, and
tofu.
seafood. How do you say it?
Tofu.
Tofu.
Yeah, I will forever disagree with that part. Unless, is that trying to say if you have diabetes, avoid that, or just in general?
Yeah.
Because red meat is
Yeah,
super healthy for you.
But not if you got diabetes.
According to Medical News Today.
According to Medical News Today. Yeah.
Because we're not scientists. We're not professional scientists.
Okay. Dairy products provide calcium, protein, and vitamins. As long as they account for the carbs in a daily count, people with diabetes can consume dairy products such as milk, yogurt, and cheese every day. Both type 1 and type 2 diabetes increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes often occurs alongside obesity. For this reason, it is best to opt for low-fat dairy foods. Dairy foods to avoid are whole milk, full-fat yogurt, full-fat cottage cheese, full-fat sour cream, and full-fat ice cream. Well, that's a lot of good food there.
Yeah, but they're telling you can't eat that. Full-fat cheese? I'm sorry, I will disagree with that till the day I die. Even if it's early from diabetes.
Cheese is like the worst thing you can eat for your cholesterol, isn't it?
No, cheese is super healthy.
Well, why would be telling you not to eat it if you got diabetes? It was healthy.
I don't know.
Okay, dairy products to eat if you have diabetes. Reduced fat or fat-free foods. 1-2% or skim milk.
Also known as white water.
Low-fat plain yogurt. Low-fat cottage cheese. And low-fat sour cream. Dairy alternatives such as soy or nut milk can be a helpful choice, but some brands contain added sugar. People should check the label before buying or consuming these products.
They taste good, but I would be willing to drink more nut milks because they're tasty, except for the fact that they're also like twice as expensive as regular milk.
You know, the millennials are definitely changing the way people eat in America. They definitely are more healthful conscious than our parents or the baby boomers are. So I can see them, hopefully, if they start eating a little better food, maybe and eventually it will, in a few years ahead, diabetes will go down. Now, fruits and vegetables, we all know how great they are. I mean, they can't hurt nobody, right? Fruits and vegetables provide fiber, vitamins, and minerals. These foods can help a person manage their body weight and reduce their risk of stroke, heart disease, some cancers, and other chronic diseases.
I don't remember what exact vegetable it was, but there was a warning where you don't want to eat too much of it because if you have a high heavy metal content in your body from maybe eating a lot of fish or whatnot, this specific vegetable was supposed to be good for helping your body process that, but if you ate too much of it, it would overload your liver and cause it to die. I'm pretty sure, maybe it was a kidney, maybe it was a liver, but it's fascinating to think about how you can poison yourself like that.
What's the name of this group again?
What's that?
Okay. For this reason, I just wonder who's did this one.
It looks like this was written by Hannah Nichols.
Hannah Nichols. Okay, I'm reading Hannah Nichols now. People with diabetes should take care when consuming the following: fruit juice, dried fruit, salt and sodium.
Fruit juice is real bad for you.
Even when people make it with fresh fruit, juice is more likely to cause a sugar spike than whole fruits, and also provides less fiber. The reason for this is that juicing is a kind of processing that breaks down the fiber. Pre-made fruit juices often contain a lot of added sugar, so it's best to avoid these. Excuse me, I gotta get something to drink.
Luckily, we're right next to your fridge.
Try not to go too far from my fridge. Okay. Of course, nothing like a fruit salad. People should, have fruit salads for dessert. It makes a good dessert. It is best to avoid or limit the following if you have diabetes. Type 2. Dried fruit with added sugar. Canned fruit with sugar syrup. Jam, jelly, and other preserves with added sugar. Sweetened applesauce. Fruit drinks and fruit juices. Canned vegetables with added sodium. Now, these are the good stuff that you can eat. Raw, steamed, roasted, or grilled fresh vegetables. Frozen vegetables. Canned, unsalted, or low-sodium vegetables. Fresh whole fruit. Frozen fruit with no added sugar. Canned fruit without added sugar, and unsweetened applesauce. Of course, you got fats. Everybody needs fats. Avocado and nuts contain healthful fats. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is the negative impact of sugar on the brain. The brain uses more energy than any other organ in the human body, and glucose is its primary source of fuel. But what happens when the brain is exposed to an excessive amount of sugars in the standard American diet? In this case, more is definitely not better. In the brain, excess sugar impairs both our cognitive skills and our self-control. For many people, having a little sugar stimulates a craving for more. Sugar has drug-like effects in the reward center of the brain. Scientists have proposed that sweet foods, along with salty and fatty foods, can produce addiction-like effects in the human brain, driving a loss of self-control, overeating, and weight loss and weight gain. In early humans, this stimulus helped lead them to calorie-rich foods, which aided survival when food was scarce. But now this primitive drive contributes to our epidemic of obesity and diabetes. The behavioral and neurobiochemical characteristics of substance abuse and overeating are quite similar, and the idea of food addiction is gaining ground among scientists. In humans,
from Very Well Mind.
This is from Very Well Mind, How Sugar Affects the Brain. January 13, 2020. In humans, high glycemic foods have been found to activate regions of the brain associated with the reward response and provoke more intense feelings of hunger compared to low glycemic foods. Foods that cause a higher elevation in blood glucose produce a greater addictive drive in the brain. Additional studies on the brain activity have provided evidence supporting the idea that overeating alters our brain's reward system, which then further drives overeating. This same process is thought to underlie the tolerance associated with addiction. Is sugar really addictive? Over time, greater amounts of the substance are required to reach the same level of reward. Studies imply that overeating results in a diminished reward response and a progressively worsening addiction to low-nutrient foods rich in sugar, salt, and fat. A study published by PLOS S1 found that sweet foods can be more addictive than cocaine. Though the research was performed on animals, investigators found that intense sweetness can surpass cocaine reward, even in drug sensitized and addicted individuals. Throughout the body, excess sugar is harmful. Even a single instance of elevated glucose in the bloodstream can be harmful to the brain, resulting in slow con- cognitive function and deficits in memory and attention. Some research suggests that high sugar consumption causes inflammation in the brain, leading to memory difficulties. A 2016 study published in Behavioral Brain Research found inflammatory markers were present in the hippocampus of rats fed a higher sugar diet, but not in those fed a standard diet. The good news, however, is this inflammatory damage from sugar may not be permanent. A study in the journal Appetite found that memory damage caused by sugar consumption can be reversed following a low sugar, low GI diet. In addition, research in 2015 found reducing sugar consumption and supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids and circum improves work and memory. Sugar also affects mood. In healthy young people, the ability to process emotion is compromised with elevated blood glucose, according to a brain imaging study. Another study published in Diabetes Care found that people with type 2 diabetes reported increased feelings of sadness and anxiety during acute hyperglycemia, elevated blood sugar. One of the largest studies to link sugar with depression, an analysis of dietary consumption and mood of 23,245 individuals enrolled in a Whitehall 2 study, found higher rates of sugar consumption was associated with a greater incidence of depression. A 2007 study in the Scientific Reports found those with the highest level of sugar consumption were 23% more likely to be diagnosed with a mental disorder than those with lower sugar intakes. Elevated sugar harms blood vessels. Blood vessel damage is a major cause of the vascular complications of diabetes, leading to other problems, such as damage to blood vessels in the brain and eyes, causing problems. Studies of long-term diabetics show progressive brain damage leading to deficits in learning, memory, motor speed, and other functions. Frequent exposure to high glucose levels diminishes mental capacity. Even in those without diabetes, higher sugar consumption is associated with lower scores on tests of function. These effects are thought to be due to a combination of hyperglycemia, hypertension, insulin resistance, and elevated cholesterol.
That's interesting because some people who do the keto diet, which is very low carbs in general, like they try to focus more on fats, say that they feel sharper in the head. And isn't sugar sickness caused by the death? I believe it's caused because there's bacteria in your gut that feeds on the sugars, and if you don't eat enough sugar, they starve, and when they die, they produce a toxin that causes the sugar flu.
A word from Verywell, who did this last report that I was quoting from. As the research shows, any sugar added in our food is dangerous. We can avoid these dangers by satisfying our sweet tooth with fresh fruit in place of refined sugars. Eating fresh fruit provides the satisfying sweetness of sugar-laden treats with the added bonus of the fruit's fiber, antioxidants, and phytochemicals that curtail the surge of sugar in the bloodstream and block its negative effects. Verywell Mind uses high-quality sources, including peer-reviewed studies,
That's about the sources of the article.
to support the facts within our articles. Well, I guess that's about it. Hopefully that people hear this will, maybe, change their diet, exercise more, and, be just a little more concerned about what they put in their mouth. Like I said, a lot of people, they eat for the brain and they don't eat for the body, and we got to start eating for our body.
Yeah,
You know.
Joe Rogan always says, like, you're willing to sacrifice so much of your health just for a little bit of mouth pleasure.
Right.
And it's like, I get it. I'm fat. I occasionally try to work on it, but like, food is so delicious.
And you know, eating good and eating right and exercising is not a bad thing. You can still have a good time. You know, it's not like a death sentence. You know, I mean,
yeah.
You know,
I actually recently I was like, you know what? I wonder how I could compare to somebody who's trying to, like, in the military. Do you know what their PE requirements are? According to, you know, the website I found, you have to be able to do it was like 45 push-ups and 50 sit-ups, 60 seconds each. And I was like, 60 seconds? That's it? Like, I could try to do that. I think I did 13 and 15. It's like, holy shit. I am not prepared for that. But it, you know, it's simple enough to where I'm gonna try to improve on that. You know, and then I did Turkish get-ups, which are super awesome. Uncle Ken is flexing his biceps to show off his cutness. Too bad Trevor wasn't here. You guys could get into a testosterone contest.
no, I'm glad you came over. And,
yeah. Well, I mean, we're still recording, and I don't have any like.
Well, you know, everybody has excuses for everything. You know what I mean? But you still try to do your best, and you can overcome things. You know, and still, you know, strive to, you know, maybe not be perfect, but at least the best you can. You know. And,
I say it all the time. I was listening to a podcast, and my roommate will say, "Was it Joe Rogan?" Of course it was Joe Rogan. But one thing that a little bit of wisdom I learned from him was when somebody says, "I don't have time," or "I don't have money," or, you know, "I can't," it's not that they don't have the time or don't have the money. It's that they can't. They're prioritizing something else with their resources.
Gotcha.
And it's like the same idea. It's like, oh man, if you know, I can't go insert activity here because I want to instead watch Netflix.
I gotcha.
You know, and it's like, well, in that case, you know, I've turned around and started asking myself, like, when I say I can't exercise, what is it that's causing me to not exercise? Is that really that important? Sometimes I go, yeah. And other times I go, shit, no. All right, fine, I'll exercise. But then I feel better.
I call it justifiable excuse. You know you got to exercise, but you know you got to do the dishes too. So instead of exercising, you do the dishes because you're still doing something good, but it's not really doing what you should be doing. So I call it like justifiable excuse, where you don't want to go out, exercise, and stay active because you find something else that you should do instead that overrides the exercise, so you don't feel bad that you're actually doing something better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Rationalizing it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, I'm not going to exercise because insert something that you can say is productive. And it's like, yeah, it might be productive, but is it necessarily what you like? Should you swap exercising with that, or should you instead swap the Netflix with it?
Right.
You know, to go back to Netflix. But like yesterday when I got home from work, I got home early, and my roommate and our friend was there, and they're like, "We're gonna go for a walk." And I was like, I wanted to relax, but no, I'll go. Yeah, let's go. So we ended up going on an adventure. It was fun. We ended up going to Quabbin.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I kind of wasted a little time because I didn't know where we were going. So I went up. What's that road that heads up to Route 2? Anyways, I ended up. You go through Belchertown and you bear right, and you go up the west side of the Quabbin.
Yeah.
We got like a half an hour north of where they wanted to go because they didn't tell me where to go, and I didn't know where to drive, so I was just going like, here's a gate for Quabbin. That's not where we want to go. Here's another gate for Quabbin. That's not where we want to go. It's like, well, where do you want to go? Like, give me some direction here. We ended up just walking the dam, which is it's a half a mile across, so we did 2 miles, which was nice. You know, but
being active is really important to beat diabetes. You know, today I played 2 hours of cornhole, and then I played 2 hours of frisbee golf. You know,
nice.
And now I'm out weightlifting. while I'm doing a whole bunch of other stuff. You can weightlift while you're watching TV. You can exercise while you're watching TV.
Yeah, that's one thing Trevor was saying. Like, when if you're watching a half an hour show, it's really like 15 or 20 minutes, and if you just do some curls and some push-ups and some sit-ups during the commercials,
I got you.
you're like, do you really want to sit there and watch the commercials? Like, if you exercise during the commercials, you're gonna be fine. You'll get better.
You
You'll
can
get
even
more fit.
exercise while you're watching the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
Right? I do it all the time. I live
Most
watching
people
my TV.
nowadays,
My weight's right in front of my TV. My weight
like
right in front of my TV.
anecdotally, most people nowadays aren't actually watching TV. They're listening to the TV while on
On the
their
phone.
computer or on their tablet or on their phone or something like that. And it's like,
Aggravating.
which is fascinating to
No, it's
think
not
about
aggravating.
because
You're watching TV show, then you're on your phone, then you forget what you watch, then you miss what you watch on TV.
then you have to rewind it.
You gotta rewind it.
But I was just thinking about it, like, why, like, you watch these action flicks and they're all visual. And then and it's like, why, if more people are watching or are not watching and they're more listening, why aren't they coming up with better stories?
Well,
Because, like, just to be contrary a little bit, and not to be, but this is my actual opinion, but, like, did you see the new Joker movie?
I didn't hear. I didn't watch it, but I read about the reviews and it
Yeah.
got nominated.
Yeah, I think it
It was
sucks.
scary.
I'll be honest. I think it's well made, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they didn't. There's no real curveballs and no real, like, the twisters. Like, spoiler alert, so skip it now if you don't want to know what happens. But the only twist I saw was where I was like, wait a minute, are they brothers? And then it was like, oh no, they're not. That was the only twist. Other than that, it's like, hold on, we know that Joker's crazy. Look, he starts the movie and he's crazy. And we know that he's still crazy when he fights Batman. And look, he's still crazy at the end of the movie. The only thing you learn is how he managed to go from a nobody to, this crime guy. But it's like, okay, so there's a little bit of story in this really long movie. Like, you could have done that in a half an hour episode of TV. But, well done, but I just don't feel like there was enough substance to warrant the reviews that it got. Not like I was watching The King, where it was like, you've got this guy who he starts off as a drunk, and you see him mold into a king, and it's like, that has actual story and character development, where like, it turns his world completely upside down, and then I love twists. I won't spoil that one, but there's a twist. There's a twist, and it's like, oh snap! Like, just to imagine what his heart must have felt. It's rough, but I recommend it. But yeah, the only thing I wish is that I had a pull-up bar.
I got a pull-up bar.
I might make one in the garage once I'm finished with the camper.
Like I
Did you see
said,
the newest video?
to me, in my opinion, energy creates energy.
Look at that. What do they call it? They talk about it all the time on Joe Rogan. But don't forget to check out my other videos, guys, about my camper build and other podcasts and stuff.
Yeah. Well, see you guys later, man.
All right. Thanks for making it to the end, everyone. And I hope we all learned something about how to be a little bit healthier. And Uncle Ken has said that he wants to do a more regular chit chat type of podcast in the future. So expect him to be on at least one more, hopefully several more episodes. Hopefully sooner than later, also. Just a reminder to subscribe and check out my other videos. There's my trailer build and my other podcasts. And maybe at some point we'll do some outdoorsy, like how to's on building fires or something, because who doesn't love to build fire?